impact here, and I work with our volunteer impact teams who help review applications and make our investment decisions. So we've also got Gary Edwards here in the back. He is from our income team. And Megan Zuniga, she is on our education team and can also help to answer any questions that you might have as we go through this process. So you should all have the handout, and it will match pretty closely with what we're looking at on the screen. Has anybody, or do we want to go around and do introductions first? Would you like to know kind of who's in the room, or do you want me just to dive in? Dive in. I know it's awkward when you're looking at people in the back. Has anybody had a chance to go online and kind of read and dig through all that information that was put out there a few weeks ago? Did you have a chance to? Did you? It's fine if you didn't, you know, because really what I was kind of getting at is that
I went to the website and had a hard time finding that link within the website.
Okay. That's kind of one of the pieces. So 2 weeks ago we released the applications. Very recently we found out that our web host does have the capability of having our submissions done online now. So we have, in a very short amount of time, switched over to not a paper process, but now an online submission process. So we kind of, Sarah, our marketing director, I think most of you know her, have worked pretty hard over the last couple of weeks to try to get these online up and running. Couldn't do that immediately, so what we did was just release those documents. So if you were able to find the application documents, everything you need is on there, but when the link goes live to submit online, we'll look at where that is. So all the information you need is on the documents, but when our web host kind of gets everything else up and running, you can see it all from there. And one of the pieces we're working on is the fact that it's not real, everything's kind of hard to find. It's not real obvious where things are. So.
And that's with the partnership that has to have signatures and everything too, electronically, or?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yep, I'll hit all that here in a minute.
Okay.
So that's a work in progress. I did pull up the website as well, so I can show you where to go now to find the app. Has anybody not even been able to find the document? Okay. So
Sure, I'll show you later today.
Okay. So are you able to get to this page? Have you read through this portion? Okay, so when you get down to our different investment priorities, it says strategic investments and kind of walks through what that is, social innovation, what that is, and then emergency and basic needs. So you would need to actually select the strategic. So then it pulls up this page that goes through the eligibility requirements, our strategic, kind of where our strategies are prioritized in each of the areas of education, income, and health, and at the end then is where you can download the document. So this will be kind of new to a lot of you, then probably what we're seeing today. If you have had a chance to look at this, just know that I'm basically just going to go through exactly what's online. So we did have a few changes, so we'll just kind of highlight those changes. I think the real value from today is just the opportunity for you guys to ask questions and ask for better clarification on certain pieces. So as far as the website, if you have any issues finding anything, please feel free to reach out to me. I can help get you there. Otherwise, just know that it will be cleaned up here very shortly. We didn't figure anybody would be ready to actually submit this soon, so hopefully that's not holding up anybody's processes, but the online submission link should be live hopefully within a couple days. So what we're going to look at today, we'll focus on what the investment process looks like here at United Way with our allocable funds, and then we'll get into a definition of each of the funding categories that we have. We'll then look at the refined priority areas and the strategies within those areas for our strategic investments. And then review the changes in our actual application process. So the things that will look different on your end for the actual process, not not actually in the application, because of course that kind of evolves every year, but in the actual process of applying. The two major changes then are the fact that we're going to the online process, and then the second being that the applicants will actually select which outcome indicators we will report on for the 2-year cycle. And then we'll go through the application fairly briefly, just to kind of show you each of the sections that you'll need to be applying to. And then we'll have a chance for question and answer at the end for both myself and our impact volunteers. So to start off, this is just a real small piece of United Way's overall process model. So this is a portion that shows the resources of United Way and where those go. And these 3 pieces then would be basically the dollars under management. So these are the funds that are available for allocation, and they come through 3 different funding streams or funding categories. Of course, you can see the titles of each there. There's social innovation, strategic investments, and then our new emergency and basic needs. Social innovation on the left was available 2 years ago. This is what was previously called either our community assessment response or R&D funds. So when you see social innovation, just know that that's the same. There's nothing real new there. So we'll start with emergency and basic needs. So this is actually a new category this year. And this was kind of created with the knowledge that even though we're trying to meet very strategic priority areas in our education, income, and health fields, we also know that we need to be also maintaining some of these basic needs for a lot of our population, because people can't focus on getting an education or finding self-sustaining employment if they're homeless. So this is basically a new stream that will allow for those kinds of programs to exist without the same level of expectation that we have from some of our strategic grants. So if you take a look here, this is just, these will be focused on meeting short-term and immediate needs. The qualifying needs are food, shelter, rental assistance, utility assistance, and the removal of immediate barriers to safety or work. So some examples of that would be state IDs if you're trying to find employment. We've had basic needs for someone whose furnace breaks down in the winter and they don't have the ability to purchase a new one, those types of things. I think that most everybody is kind of clear on what would qualify, but we did have some discussion last time. Does anybody want any further?
Is transportation an immediate barrier to work?
It could be, and that's one that there's probably 2 different categories that could go in. So just depending kind of on what your long-term goals are. If you look at our final bullet point there, we'll actually be reporting on outputs rather than outcomes for emergency and basic needs. So it's a matter of what your long-term goals are. Is it a 1 or 2 time need to get the prescription, or are you trying to sustain improved condition or status of a client? So, I mean, we'll probably have some conversation around some of those different ones. And shelter as well. Shelter is one where are you simply trying to provide a crisis intervention night stay, or is it like transitional housing where you're trying to maintain so you can help them get an education and secure employment? But those are all things that we have conversation.
So just a question, so along with transportation, so would like a match savings program for get under transportation like that, or is this more than?
So this would be short-term and crisis.
A car broke down.
Okay, and if you take note there, the 3rd bullet, our investments for emergency and basic needs will be between $10,000 and $75,000 a year. And priority will be given to clients living below 200% of poverty. again, for emergency and basic need investments, you'll actually be selecting 2 outputs rather than outcomes. And there's, those are both defined on the information online. Any other question on the emergency and basic need piece, because that is new. All of our volunteers, especially in the income team, you know, when we're looking through reporting and measurable outcomes, it was very difficult for those in an emergency or basic need program to really provide outcomes. So there was a lot of discussion around, you know, how do we still support these types of programs but not expect them to report on things like a condition or status change 5, 6, 7 months down the road, because we know that you don't maintain constant contact with the program. So it's a matter of we provided this many units of service as opposed to we improve their livelihood in this way. For our social innovation investments, and I won't spend a whole lot of time on this just because this is not part of the 2-year funding cycle. These are those community assessment or R&D funds that are on that are more of a per need basis. Have you guys seen kind of the press releases and some of the information that have come out on the R&D funding opportunities? Not really? Okay. Well, you can go on our website and find more information on those. It's basically a per need timeline. It supports new, innovative, and collaborative community efforts to address the root causes of poverty in the Cedar Valley. So you would need to meet all of those areas in order to apply. So campaign for grade level reading is something that United Way has invested in recently, and that would be an example. It's a large community collaboration. It is a new approach to trying to disrupt generational poverty and just looking at the root causes of poverty. So in order to access these funds, there would need to be a meeting held with Cedar Valley United Way and members of that collaboration, and then there would need to be an invitation extended for you to propose for those, to submit a proposal for those funds. And then at the bottom, you can hardly see it, there's a link there just if you want more information on those social innovation funds. One more thing I should mention on the emergency and basic needs. This won't necessarily pull from our regular eligible funds. I don't know, some people are thinking, you know, would it be less in the area of education, income, or health, and that's not the case. We've kind of gone back and done like a 3-year analysis of what I would determine to be emergency and basic needs, and we've typically funded those at about 20% of our overall eligible funds, so that won't change. It'll just be a matter of making a recommendation to the board and then them saying, this is the percentage that we want to give to emergency and basic needs. So I don't see that having much of an impact on other areas. So our strategic investments, is why I'm assuming most of you are here today. This is our traditional education, income, and health funding stream. Just put a name to it. It's now strategic investments because traditional education, income, and health strategy investments, pretty long name. So if you hear us refer to strategic investments, those are our 2-year cycle education, income, and health grants. So in this area, priority will be given to programs that most strongly align and support Cedar Valley United Way strategies, which we'll get into here in a minute. Priority is also given to programs that show strong measurable outcomes and impact towards those strategies. And this is where that outcomes versus outputs comes in. So you need to be able to show measurable change in our outcomes, which is typically in behavior, attitude, condition, knowledge, or status. So if making a change in one of those pieces is your goal, strategic investments are kind of the area for you. If you're mostly looking at just providing a number of meals, providing so many nights stay in an emergency shelter, those types of things, that would be an output for emergency and basic needs. So looking at our strategies for each of our target areas, these have been a little more well-defined this year, with some focus areas within some of the areas that we've had in the past. So we're looking at early education, and this is where we're trying to get preschool children access to high-quality early learning programs that prepare them for kindergarten, and also get our K through third grade children reading at proficiency levels. We want to really support our after-school and summer learning, so this is a new strategy where students can access high-quality, enriching out-of-school programs that are aligned with school day curriculum. We would like to increase parent and mentor support, so students have support and encouragement for educational success from engaged parents or advocates and mentors. And then focusing on college and career preparation. So junior high and high school students have access to age-appropriate college and career prep and graduate equipped with skills for success. If you remember our last funding cycle, we had a pretty broad academic achievement strategy. So this is just a lot more focused at the areas that we think can really make an impact in generational poverty. I think all these things are what most of us are already doing. It's just, we want to be very clear and concise with our strategies and where we're trying to drive change.
What grades are considered junior high?
7th, 8th, 9th. I know some schools go to 6th, so we're not going to define that
But
too
isn't that in
strictly.
middle school and junior high, now they call it middle school, which is junior high.
That age group.
And so if we were to apply for the education strategy, do we have to focus on one of those four, or can be a combination?
You could do a combination. Just know that whatever strategies you select, you need to have a minimum of 2 indicators selected as well. So basically 2 metrics that you're going to be reporting on biannually. And we'll get to that here in a minute. Have you had a chance to look at that document online? Was anybody able to find it? Okay. So one interesting piece here was, we've been doing a lot of research with campaign, we haven't been doing research, we've been looking at a lot of the research through Campaign for Grade Level Reading and E. Casey Foundation. And if you're familiar with that, you know that they've identified those 3 key areas that can really disrupt generational poverty. Graduation rates being one, delaying pregnancy until I believe 25 is the magic number, and then also helping to equip individuals with the skills needed to get and keep a job. So we kind of felt like the one area that we were really maybe not focusing on that strongly was that piece of helping individuals get and keep a job. And that's why that college and career prep now is a little bit more limited. If you remember the last cycle, this was simply transition from school to work. So what we've done is make sure that our kids pre-graduation or around 18 are getting those types of opportunities in school while they're still, in the public school system or sometimes private school system. And what we're doing now is in our income strategies is we've included a workforce development strategy. So this is where you'll see more of those working with kids. Or with individuals, they may still be 17 or 18, but maybe they've dropped out of school. So this is working with individuals to get them the skills they need to get and keep a job. So this is where you'll see access to some type of trade education or skill development, whether it be in interviewing, resume building, helping them to helping with literacy skills for adults. There's a lot of adult basic education programs that would fall in this category. So basically helping low or no income individuals get the skills they need to secure self-sufficient employment. Any questions on that? I know we have some programs that maybe overlap that a little bit, so they might have clients that are in school and they may have some that are a little bit older and aged out of school. So what we're really looking for there is what is the majority of your clientele? Is it 75% in their 20s and maybe you have 25% that are in high school and trying to access your services, and that's fine. we would just be looking at where a majority of your population would fall. And our second income strategy then is that achieving financial stability, so very similar to what we've done in the past. And this is where low to moderate income individuals are empowered to move towards greater financial independence. So a lot of those financial literacy programs, and longer term programs that are looking to reach very specific financial goals. And then again, moving into health, not a lot has changed here either. And sorry if you're new to the process and don't know what our last cycle was, because I'm referring to that a lot. But if you are familiar with our process, not much has changed with the health strategies. We're still looking at maternal health and infant well-being, access to physical health care. But what we have done is add an access to mental health care. One of the reasons for this is through our community needs assessment back in 2013. I think every single agency probably identified that mental health is a large barrier to the service provision. So we're trying to really focus in on that. And if you take a look at the description of physical health care and mental, you'll see that what's missing from the mental health care piece is that there's not a priority of low to moderate income individuals specified in there. And that's because we know that access to mental health care is an issue across all socioeconomic statuses in our community. So then you can just look at our final category, which is increasing healthy behaviors. Pretty similar subcategories as last time. And then we did also specify in all of our strategies that prevention and early intervention is also included. We all know this, but we're focusing on prevention. So I feel like that was just a whole lot of information on the process and on our strategies. Is there anything that really sticks out as a big change or that doesn't make sense or why we're moving in a certain direction?
I don't have a question on that per se, but under the basic needs, if you're an organization that has multiple programs, can we do 2 applications for basic needs? Or more than one application, I guess?
Yes. And you can also select, if it's one program, you can select multiple basic needs. So if you have a program that's, that supplies food, but also does some, rental assistance, you can select more than one need for one program. It's just kind of mostly determined by how that's structured at your organization. Anything else? If not, we can move on.
I just had a question. Say you're asking for funding for a program with participants in it. Do you have a minimum number of participants that would be in the program?
No.
No?
I would say our volunteers look fairly heavily at, not fairly, cost per participant.
Okay.
But of course, taking into account if transportation is provided, that can be a determining factor. But I know we've had, in our last cycle specifically, we had a lot of duplication in one particular area that we really had to lay out each of those programs and compare what was offered and which one were using evidence-based curriculum and what was the cost per participant and all those things. So those get looked at a little. Would you guys agree with that? So I mean, it could be looked at, but it's not like we have a standard. And then that link just takes you to the full list of options for each of those strategy areas. So when you go onto our website, you'll first need to create a user account in order to be able to start submitting applications online. So when you go to cedarvalleyunitedway.org, you'll want to scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, and this is what it'll look like. And the text is that tiny, which is why I circled the 2 areas where you can log in. So that actually says login and site login. Go to either one of those and click on the login, and it'll take you to this screen. And you'll want to create a new account. after you've created an account, you'll just go to this login tab there. And I'm sure most of you have created online accounts in the past, so it's very similar to that. Once you enter your user information, you'll receive an email. So I would say it's just like any other user account you've set up, but this is just screenshots, so you can basically match up as you're doing it to make sure you're going to the right place. So after you submit that information, you'll receive an email. You'll need to click on the link and change your password. And after you do that, your account is complete and you can start submitting your applications. Once you're into the application, you can save, edit, and submit, and then you can also go back and have access to all those applications that you did submit. So you'll be able to see a full listing if you're applying for multiple programs.
Do you want just one, minimum per agency?
That would be best. You would just share your password. You would not have access to the same. I mean, if you're doing one program and another user is doing a second one and you don't want to share it, that's fine. You can set up more than one, but if you have like multiple people working on the same application, you can share a user.
If you're like us where you have a branch, would you suggest like people in the branch create their own?
Most likely, because they would be submitting different applications, right? Yeah, they would probably want their own. Unless you want to be able to go in and view what they're doing and make any changes, then it's just a matter of password sharing, who you're comfortable sharing those with and having access to your submissions.
You can do multiple applications under one user.
So once you actually go and click on the link then for the application, this is what it will look like. And right up here, it'll say you need to create an account if you haven't already. It will also say up there whether you want to create a new application or if you want to view existing applications. So it's right there at the top when you go in.
Can more than one person be working simultaneously within the account?
I don't
Might
know.
even have it open and then,
I don't think you can be on the same
not necessarily the same
application.
application, but if I'm doing one in education and somebody else is doing one in
Yeah,
health.
that I don't believe so. But we have started a Q&A, like I said, we're still getting this in place. You can see that it's there, it's just not available to everybody yet because we're working out some of these issues. And we have started kind of a Q&A document for the submission process, and then we'll send out full screenshots once it's all in place as well, so you can follow through. But I can add that to the list of kind of frequently asked questions for when it is live. Okay, so you can see it's pretty similar to most online forms. There's just a field for program name, the organization, your address, all of that housekeeping type of information. And then just narrative boxes to either copy and paste all of your work or just begin completing the application here. And then that,
Are they character restricted? Is that on the application?
yes. So if you look at this green bar right here, that kind of tells you where you're at in the process. But yes, character restricted, and then there's also some questions that require an upload or document. So the partner profile will also be online, which of course, if you remember the partner profile, it's basically just, you'll be uploading documents that you already have. So like your financial audit or financial statement, your list of board members. And then there are two pieces on that partner profile that do need, like Angela asked, that need to actually be downloaded, printed, signed, and then uploaded back onto the partner profile. Those two pieces would be, so the board signature, there's the stewardship and financial management piece, just verifying that they agree with all the information that you're submitting, kind of checking off on all the financial management pieces that the board is a part of. and then signing and dating at the bottom. So of course, we need those signatures still, but you can upload it electronically. And then the second piece would be that counterterrorism compliance form. If you're all familiar with that you have to do every year. It's basically because we're an international nonprofit, and you're basically just verifying that the money we're giving you is not going to any type of terrorist activity, across borders. So that'll just need to be printed out, signed, and then uploaded back to the website. Any questions on the online process? Okay, so let's take a look at the selection of our outcome indicators. So this is the second fairly big change for applicants this year. Under each of those strategies that we just looked at, under education, income, and health, you will need to select 2 indicators that you will be reporting on to support that strategy. And there's no maximum. So if you take a look at that list and you're able to provide data on all of those indicators, that would make for a pretty competitive grant. But that's up to you and what tools you have in place and what you're actually focusing on. And I'll show you where that full list is, again, if I can get there. It's gonna want me to get there. So if you're on the strategic investment page, this right here, titled Cedar Valley United Way Community Impact Strategies and Key Indicators, if you just click on that, it'll bring you a Word document. And you can scroll down to your target area. So if we're looking at, workforce development, this is a list of the options that you could select as indicators that your program supports, that you'd be able to provide data on. So these will be listed as possibly, radio button style. I'm going to do this one and this one and this one. Just know then that on those 6-month progress reports, those are the pieces that we'll need data on, that we'll need to see your numbers and percentages.
Will the progress reports also be online?
Like I said, it was very recently found out we even had the ability to do this, so we're really just trying to push all that through. So it's really our hope that we'll get there. Any reaction to that? I know Brad McCullough, I'm sure most of you are pretty familiar with Brad over at Success Link. I had him look over all these indicators, and he actually helped develop some, and he kind of gave blessing, thought it was great. He actually said, I wish I was applying this year because, this is a lot more explicative of what our program does, is to be able to select and report on what we're doing rather than us telling you, here's the one indicator we need from you. So, feedback from Brad and also some help from our data guru in the community kind of helped develop this. So hopefully it's in line with what everybody's already doing in terms of data gathering. But is there any concern over that? I think they're much more specific to what kind of outcomes we're hoping for. In the past, we've had, for example, in our financial, in our income category, achieving greater financial stability, the indicator we've requested would be they've reached at least one of their financial goals. Well, now they've reached a financial goal, and then you have to actually list what the financial goal is, and then what percentage reached 2 financial goals and which reached 3. So a little bit better picture of what's actually happening there. So just a lot more specific. Okay, so in addition to the 2 two indicators, the two minimum from the list provided, you will also be given the opportunity to select two of your own. So if you're measuring something that's not on that list that you think helps our volunteers really see what's going on, that maybe is not in that list but still supports that strategy, there'll be two fields there to add any additional indicators with a maximum of 2 there. Nothing's changed here. Reporting on the selected indicators will be required biannually, so following that same schedule of July and January. One more indicator that uses a self-reporting tool, we want to see that tool. So if you're saying, 50% of our clients state that they have a higher quality of life, we want to just see that tool that you're measuring it on. We don't want to see, what the participants filled out. We don't need to see all that. We just want to see the tool that's being used. So that's for any self-reporting indicators. And we would also like to see the assessment tool if you're measuring an increased knowledge in something. So usually it's a pre or post test. We just would like to see what that consists of.
Do you want to see those tools during the application process or the reporting process?
Application. There'll be a place to upload for it. Okay, and then that final bullet there just says that the ability to report on indicators that support United Way strategies is an eligibility requirement for our strategic investment applications. So you'll just need to review those lists and make sure that, again, you're lining up with our strategies. So on to the actual application. So we're going to kind of walk through the strategic application. The emergency and basic needs application is very, very similar. There's just not as much of the in-depth questioning. So a few of the pieces that we'll look at here won't be required in that basic needs application. Both will start with an organization overview. Pretty brief, don't need to go into too much detail. Again, there are word limits, and this one's a little bit smaller. We just kind of want to get an idea of the overall agency mission, and so how this program supports that overall mission. Your program narrative, so this again is very, very similar to what's been done in the past. It's just broken out a little bit more to be a bit more concise. So in the past where we've said, tell us about your program, who's your target population, tell us about the need, that was all one section, one narrative. We've now just broken that out because there were a lot of cases of, we asked 5 questions within one and something gets missed. So this is just a way to make sure we're seeing all those pieces, and also with word limits on each of those sections, so it doesn't turn into a 10-page document for just this section that our reviewers have a hard time digging through to get the information we really need. One thing I would add there, it says to speak in a way that a person with no prior knowledge of your program can easily visualize and understand. So, just pretend we're just coming in off the street, we have no idea what your program consists of. Tell it in a way that we can really understand what's happening there. And then there's a subset there on that program narrative. So this piece is not a part of the word limitation. This will be an attachment, and what we'd like to see is a timeline of your program. So it should give the readers an understanding of the client experience and or overall service availability. It could include beginning and end dates if applicable, dates or time frame that each component that you outlined in the narrative, dates or time frame of client or program milestones, frequency and duration of components. If dates are not available, use that time frame, such as during week 4, this is what happens. If the service is ongoing, just provide as much info as you can on the availability of the services throughout the investment cycle, as well as the client's experience. So that could just be a simple chart that says week 1, this is what happens, week 2, this is what happens, or if it's an ongoing service, it's just saying, we have these services available Monday, Tuesday, Friday from, 9 AM to noon. It's just, we just wanted to really have a picture of what, both what it looks like from the client's perspective, as well as how that's, the time frame and availability of that service. Any questions on that? Because I know that's a new piece there. So part 2 really focuses on service delivery, and it's intended for us to gain a strong understanding of how and why decisions are made in regards to the provision of services. So where part 1 was simply about this is what we're doing, this is how it's provided to the participants and who we're serving, that type of thing. This really shows how your decisions are made and how you're providing that service. So first is just kind of the first section is a background, so a little bit of the history and evolution of that service. So have you had to respond to legislative changes? Have you had to respond to social trends? Things like that, kind of just to get a sense of how you've had to adapt and respond to changes. The rationale, basically why have you chosen the mechanism that you have? So is this a best practice? Is it evidence-based? Is it purely through learning through your own organization on things that you have found to be most effective? Just gives you a chance to kind of describe that there. Professional qualifications. So how qualified are your direct care staff? Are there certain certifications or license needed to really provide the best service? Or if not, simply stating why that's not a need in this area of service. Also, if anyone's working towards getting a certain credential, anything like that helps to really optimize your service delivery. And then the last one there is continuum of care. There you just have the chance to talk about how you link with other services. So if you know that your client has a need, but you don't necessarily provide that need for your program, are you helping to connect them with those resources? And what we'll be looking for here, if you just look at the 2 bullets at the bottom, we're just trying to get a sense of whether the client and community needs are understood and responded to, and then are the appropriate efforts being made to ensure optimal results. Part 3 then is our program evaluation piece. This is where we're trying to gain a greater understanding of the agency's current ability to gather and learn from your program data. So data monitoring, simply how do you collect and what do you collect in terms of data? Quality improvement would include how you learn from that data that's collected, and then performance goals. So this year we would like to see your actual goals in each of those areas. So, so you tell us a certain number and percentage of clients that have reached a certain goal. We would like to know if that's what your goal was and how you determine that that is successful. So we see many programs come through as we look through reports, and one may say that 20% of our clientele reached this certain goal. Another program may have 70. That could be very successful for both of those programs, but we just would like some way to gauge that. So we'd like to know what kind of goal you've set for yourself in that area, and then how is that determined? Is there a national average? Is there, does your franchise have some type of goal that they give you for those certain measurement pieces? We would just like to know what you consider to be successful and why. Does that make sense? And then last bullet there at the bottom just says that what we're really trying to get a feel for here is that the data is being used to ensure efficiency and quality of services, and not necessarily just to meet the requests of investors. Is it something that's really used as an improvement piece? And then the budget, again, I'm going to have to refer to previous years. Nothing's really changed in the budget section. The narrative's the same. The program budget that we request is the same. I would just say, to make note that the request is for the fiscal year 2016, and the dates are provided there, so July 1st of 2016 through June 30th of 2017. So we just like to see that program budget there, and then the expenses and revenue should match on those, and then there'll be that narrative, which is pretty much exactly the same as last year.
And do you want your fiscal year or our fiscal year?
So it's, if not, does it not line up very well?
No, we're a calendar year.
I was gonna say, some of the summer programs have other time that too, but, if it needs to be adjusted, just make sure that you outline that. We mostly wanna see what's within this investment cycle though, so.
But if it's not different than what we've done in years past.
But starting this July, right? Okay.
When is the due date for the application?
February 12th. February 12th at 2 o'clock, and that online link will be shut down basically at 2 o'clock. So, I mean, I think it's great that we no longer will need those 10 paper copies, rehold punch, 2 copies of the partner profile, all your audits, all those things, all be online. I think that's a great change. Just know that at 2 o'clock, it's gonna be shut down. So just make sure you have all those attachments on there, because you won't be able to hit submit until you've uploaded everything that's required.
Yep, wait till.
Will there
2
be
o'clock.
any-
The computers broke 1 year.
Would there be any sort of notification that things have been received at your office?
When you submit it, you get an automatic email from the website.
Okay.
I know in the past we've had people trying to come in, write it too, and still making copies and things like that. So this will be a lot cleaner. It will just be, you gotta hit submit quick to make sure that all those attachments are on there, because we just can't make assumptions. Now, if there's some issue with the website, you know, of course, our web host will be able to see that, and they'll be able to see who's been on and trying to submit. So if there's some type of issue with that, we'll certainly have our tech support with that piece. But it's been pretty user-friendly. I think it will be pretty user-friendly. It's just a matter of getting it set up the way we want it to and functioning the way we want it to. Some of the pieces we're working on, you know, there's limits on how long some of our indicators, you know. So that page might look kind of funny. You might have to actually go through and yes, no, instead of just selecting the ones you want. So there might just be some little nuances like that. But again, we'll be night and day from 10 paper copies and all the extra attachments that go with that. And we will, like I said, we will get a Q&A, question and answer thing out. So if you have any other questions on that, feel free to shoot them to me, and we'll put them together on a document. And I'll probably just put them right on the website, because I know there's a lot of applicants that are not current partners. So if I just send it to my current distribution list of our partners, not everybody will get it. So just be looking on our website for any updates there. What's your question?
If you're running summer programming, and, you know, most of that starts before July 1st, do you include the program costs that happen before July 1st as part of a program whole?
You're just talking about the budget
Yeah.
section and the piece
Well,
details?
yeah, because like, let's say you're running a summer camp program, you're incurring expenses as soon as the program starts. So if the
Sorry.
funding cycle starts July 1st, can you only include expenses as of July 1st?
Well, we had that same issue last year, right?
Yeah.
We were able to just work it out by.
That's what I just
getting on that.
seen if that is still the
Yeah,
case.
so would you be applying for 2016 summer?
Yeah,
Or,
probably.
yeah, we'll have to
Yeah.
talk about that one, because I believe the funds that we gave last year would be overlapping into this.
How long does it take to make a decision on the grants?
We will have notifications out in May. And that whole timeline is there if you look on our website again. So if you're looking at the funding opportunities tab, and you scroll all the way to the bottom, there are the dates there. So our impact teams will be reviewing and mostly March and April, and then making recommendations to the board, and that board decision then is made in May. And as soon as that's made, we would send out notifications and the funding agreement. Anything else you would like to ask of our volunteers who reviewed the grants while you're here?
I have a quick question, just a technical question. Do you know, if you're missing like an attachment or something and you try to submit, will it alert you that you're missing that, or will it submit it without it? No, okay.
It'll give you a little red flag.
Okay.
And it, I mean, even if it's, you know, how the emergency and basic needs is between 10,000 and 75,000, if you try to select 80,000 and you hit submit, it'll stop you. Anything else while we've got everybody in the room, including reviewer, nothing for the reviewers?
Partner profile, very obvious when you get into the,
It should be, so as it is now, you can view it through, again, going to whichever category you'll be applying in, and it's scrolling to the bottom. Right there.
gotcha.
At this time, I guess it's not known if you'll have to submit that separately or if it will be a piece of the application. I'm sure it will be a separate piece, because if you submit 5 programs, we don't necessarily wanna make you submit a partner profile for each of those submissions. So it will most likely be a separate, I don't know if there's a way to say if you've done it once for one agency, you need to do it again. So it will be most likely 2 different pieces that you'll need to submit.
Will the button to take you to the online application be in the same location as these?
Sarah's shaking her head yes, so I'm gonna go with that. Yes, sir. You know, it would be nice if we could get it less hidden. I'll send an email out once it is live, let you know if there's any changes in locations. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but I know it's completely different on the writing end, so is there anything either of you would like to add as far as from the reviewer perspective? Not necessarily.
I'm on the education CIT, and I guess I would tell you guys, when you're submitting information or you're submitting your biannual, updates to us, your reports to us, and you're telling us that you can't get the data, but if the data's really out there, the other people who have been funded have the data and they're giving it to us. So there's a lot of times we'll see stuff come in and say, couldn't get this information, waiting on reporting, but then another agency that's been funded has the reporting and the information. I mean, a lot of the reporting comes from the same agency and we see it all coming in. So, I mean, please make your best effort to give us all the information that you have, because your counterparts are.
It's competitive, and it's getting more competitive. And donors and boards, of course, are becoming more strict on the accountability piece, so.
When we went out this year, I went out and did 20-some rallies for John Deere and asked for the donation this year, and I hadn't done that in years past. And people donating really ask a lot of questions about how accountable we are with the money we distribute back into the community. So it's important to us when we're looking at applications, and when people are asking us in the community what we're doing and how we're making sure dollars are working really hard. When we're asked those tough questions by donors, we want to be able to answer them for them too. Because people really are interested in how the money goes out and how hard it works. We believe it works really hard.
Like sometimes in the past, people have put non-applicable in the category, and if it's there, that doesn't go well with the reviewers, and then they apply your purpose name. It's
Hopefully
there
this-
because we need that information.
Hopefully this selection of indicators will help limit some of that.
Yeah, I think so.
Because if they select it and then later say it's not applicable, I don't know if that would there's a, you know, again, that 2 selection minimum, but there's not a list of options for that. That's basically, when you look at the program evaluation piece, you'll be asked to tell us what outputs you'll be reporting, with a minimum of 2, with full knowledge that 1 is probably going to be the number of clients you serve. So that's kind of a given because that's in a lot of the reports anyway. So just know when it says minimum of 2 that we understand that the numbers that you're serving is probably one of them. So is it a number of individuals served as well as number of meals served, or as well as pounds of food served, or, you know, emergency hotel, you know, nights in a hotel needed for a disaster. And then one other addition that's in the emergency and basic needs application that is not in the one that we just reviewed is that we do ask for some history of your outputs. So again, it'll be an upload of a simple chart or something so that it's, you won't have to write a narrative on it. It can just simply be, you know, it's 2 years worth. So 2014 we served this many pounds of food. 2015 we did this. And again, it'll just be a chart, upload it. We just like to see kind of the history of your servicing those. Really quick, if there aren't any other questions.
I would like to hear more from the reviewers because this is tangible, but they end up reading the document, and it was really good to hear that the reviewing process does not applicable, and also what you indicated, what you're looking for in terms of accountability and heavily leaning towards that. This process is where the rubber meets the road, so if you can provide us with some aspect of your sanctum sanctorum as to how you look at a proposal and what is to you more viable than not, things that you are really ticking off. We understand this part, but it is also a human process too.
I'm on the healthcare CIT and have been for six or 7 years. And so applications come in, we get the most applications. We get more applications than the other 2 put together, probably twice as many put together. So it's a lot of reading for us, and I myself like to read a complete grant. I don't like coming out, you know, blanks and NAs, and when it asks for budgets, we expect the budget to be there, and you'd be amazed at how many times it's not there. And she has a lot of work to do, and she's gone back and asked sometimes, and it still doesn't show up. Or, you know, and do your math. Everybody has a calculator on the computer, on their phone, on their desk, or wherever. So when you give us numbers, those numbers should add up.
And I think to that point, when we see some of those things, I think what I've seen is that my volunteers get a general feeling that it was rushed at the last minute. It was not proofread, otherwise those numbers would have added up, that space would not have been blank. So it just gives the overall feel of, was this well thought through, or?
Yes. It's grants doing this. You know, your agencies range in size from very small to very large. And some of you have staff who are responsible just for grants. And so those grants should look a whole lot better than your 2 or 3 person operation startup that's trying to get into the game. And game's not a good word, but you know, into the process. It doesn't always work that way. So I caution you to, it's frustrating, and it may not go well for you if we find those things. In answering the questions, I think that asking for anecdotal information to show your progress in providing services to clients has helped a great deal. But we also want the hard numbers too, and facts. If you say you're going to deal with 100 clients and it's midway through the first year and you've only seen 10. We need an explanation why it's 10. You know, maybe that need has been met by some miracle. Donald Trump came and just showered us.
We call it miracle.
But again, there could be very compelling reasons why that hasn't happened, and we need to know what those are. Because when the next one comes up and your numbers are still way off, we don't expect it to be exactly this or exactly that, but if your numbers are still way off, then we need to have a meeting. Because the money's gonna slow down, because you've already received half the money, but you're only serving 20 or 25% of the clients that you expected to serve. On the other hand, if there's some disaster or something that happens, aberration, where you are inundated with a lot more clients than you had expected to serve and were awarded money to serve, then you need to have a conversation too. There may be something we can do about that. But keep the lines of communication open, be open and honest and as thorough as possible. And that helps us a lot.
It's very telling. When in mid-year you're getting that report in, that you've already met your projected number of clients for the whole year. What happened in the community? Were there layoffs? Were there some other major component that is affecting what those services need to be? And that's where you elevate the conversation internally. So that helps us. I think the narratives are very good too. The anecdotal stories. I guess if you've ever been to a gala, you know, the fundraising banquets that we have, where you want someone to be on stage that you've served this year, that is like your poster child, or your poster person, the one that conveys what your mission is about. And we like to hear that because it gives context to it. The outputs are very important, the outcomes are extremely important. But what does that mean to them? And I think that's where those stories really help.
I think, like Rose said, we read the applications and we read every piece, and we have very diverse groups and backgrounds. So some groups, you know, are catching the numbers that don't add up. Other people who have experience in writing, you know, RFPs for our jobs. You know, we are reading them. We don't skim through them. We read everything that is submitted because we take it very seriously that we are looking and giving away people's money that they have donated. I think some agencies also, when you're doing your mid-year reviews, sometimes sell yourself short in that you have huge wins that you have, and we've either heard about them on Facebook or Debbie's told us that, you know, this agency did this, did you guys know that? And then we're reading them mid-year and it doesn't show up. So, I mean, I think sometimes people are selling themselves short too. I mean, put the wins in there because we want to hear about them, and it doesn't, doing wonderful things and hitting it out of the park doesn't stop the funding. It is encouraging, and it makes, you know, me want to invest more in those programs to just see how much more can happen.
And one other thing, as a member of the community and I'm a really old lady, I remember presenting, being one of those people that would come to United Way for the YW and talk about the program because they'd want to know the program. When you write a poor grant, well, you're not going to get a lot of money with a poor grant. Okay, so you wrote a really good grant application and you got money, but your mid-year reports are kind of shoddy. It makes me think that those clients are not getting top-notch service. And just because you're poor or semi-literate or have mental health issues or tertiary health issues, you haven't, doesn't mean that you don't deserve the best. And so I want to know that you all have the potential to serve those people just as much as anybody else and to give them top-notch service. And so that's what I expect. and your grant applications and your reports back to us should reflect that.
I would add on to exactly that, and that's the style. I think all of you have networked within your community and found some people that write really good. And we've read them. And they are impressive. Personally, I've been doing this for 14 years, reviewing program grants with the United Way, and I've seen those, and their reports might show meaningless outputs. It's really written well. So we dig deeper. We do get down into, you know, what those things are, those narratives that, it's really about substance when we get it at the end of the day. Sure, we're impressed when we read it, it's like, it gets your attention, but thoroughness and accuracy, not doing the same old, responding to new best practices, community needs, things like that.
Looking for
I
new
think-
partners or,
How do you leverage? You know, some people are really good at that. That's our secret sauce.
Just one more. I know that this is nitpicky, but double space, font size, some foundations, the reviewers really have these little pet peeves. Is there a font size pet peeve, double space, single space? Some folks try to cheat and shrink size in order to get more in and the whole 9 yards, so.
I think the minimum font size is going to be dictated by
Yeah.
the program.
I don't think there'll be opportunity for that much here. I think the text is pretty much gonna be set.
Okay.
But yes,
My-
that
my
has been
biggest
a
pet
thorn.
peeve-
That has been a
This side
thorn,
in the
yeah.
past.
One of my big pet peeves was front to back. I thought we could save a lot of trees, you know, and save those on there with a lot less paper being used. But that'll be taken care of now. with
Yeah, I don't think I
online.
ever specified.
Yeah.
You have to print front and back.
Well, and most people don't, but you know, well, for health, you know, the notebook for you may look like this, but the notebook for health looks like this. And sometimes, well, one year we had 2 like this. So therefore, that's a lot for me to haul around. If you do front to back, yeah, and so printing it myself, I was printing it.
One thing, Rose was talking about really selling yourself in those reports, and I know that there has been a lot of disparity in the past between, that success story section. I mean, we hear some phenomenal stories from some, and others we just see kind of a copy and paste of a 5-word sentence, like, I really enjoyed your program. Like, that's not, you know, that's not necessarily a success story. I think the readers have really wanted to get, you know, that feel for, you know, let me see what happened in an individual's life and how you were able to impact that, and rather than a copy and paste of, you know, a 1-sentence exclamation of how much fun they had, or, you know, things like that. But I think that's been a pretty wide range of quality of success stories.
And those success stories help you fine tune your programming too. Because your clients, they have issues that didn't get resolved or only partially resolved, and you know that there's more work for you to do to get to that point.
I need to respond to something here. We also have a responsibility though to our participants regarding their confidentiality. When we start to get too long or too much information in a success story, this is a small community and we run the risk of somebody going, oh, I think I know who that is. And so we're pretty careful about how we do some of that, and like some of the things that are just a sentence long for us is because that's something that a participant has given us and said, I'm okay if you use this piece. But I've seen participants reduced to tears because someone recognized them or said something. And the same is true when you ask them to get up and talk about their experiences or using that, and then, you know, later if they find out that maybe you didn't get the money, they own that. And so I know with the stuff that we do, we're very, very careful about that because that's a big responsibility that we take pretty seriously on that. But I get your point, and I get, we turn our success stories in too, but the more information you put in there, the more likely it is that someone will think that they know who it is, so.
Well, I think that we'd be careful about, medical issues that could be identifiable.
No, I get it,
Yeah.
but you'd be surprised at
Hmm.
how little it takes and how,
Yeah,
it's their stuff,
yeah,
yeah.
I know.
I'm a financial professional, and when I talk with people, couples, businesses, whatever, quite often when you make a point, you can do it by sharing the story someone else had in a similar circumstance. And people go, yeah, that sounds just like me, and it helps them understand they're not the first one there. But every time you do that, you run that same risk. And there are ways you know that it's meaningful to them, is you go, I love this story and I'm really glad it worked. Do you mind if I share it?
Yes, and we do that all the time. We get,
And of course,
That's where we
you
get
don't
the sense.
need to get a lot of detail, but the context is what I think is important.
I agree. Sorry, social worker in me just always
Oh, yeah.
point that out.
That's good.
We've got different complaints too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we've had some that actually go to their participants and ask if it's okay that they share their story, because we think we receive.
That's a good rule.
Yeah.
Can't go wrong.
But we also have some that are, child in elementary school that are very generic, but the stories, we don't need the who, the personal information of how it was successful without, being able to give us personal information about anybody too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I've been success stories for several years now. Normally, when I talk to clients, I let them know that there's a possibility it might be posted in the United Way paper, which it has in the past, and then I ask them for permission to, if it's okay, then tell them that I'm gonna write a success story about them. And so, they usually open up more and let me know what their past has been and how we've been able to help them and so on and so forth. And so I've had pretty good success that way, just kind of let them know what's going on.
There's been, on those 6-month reports, there is also sometimes some confusion on the numbers and how to report duplicated and unduplicated, some of those things. So if it's determined that you would like to meet again and go through some of the reporting pieces, as that time gets closer, we can certainly do that. They won't be a whole lot different than they are now, just of course with the indicators we selected. But if we want to get together and have some conversation around actually completing and submitting the reporting piece, we can do that too.
Since this reporting's been done, that almost every agency has sometimes been challenged with just getting their arms around doing that. And there's so many of pieces of the work that you all do in our community that's wonderful. It can be a challenge to find the outputs, right? How do you measure what some of those outcomes are? And we can kind of tell that when we get the program requests in. But Debbie's a great resource for that, to really help you understand what's a good way to tell your story. So call her. I don't think it's bugging her at all. She's got time.
That's what I do.
Right.
Anything else? Got 40 minutes of your lives back if we don't have any other questions. All right, well, thanks everyone, and